Welcome to the Her Vibe is Pretty podcast, where you'll be guided on how to step up into your evolved woman,
design your dream life, and start living it. Let's get vibey.
What's up, loves? Welcome back to the Her Vibe is Pretty podcast. This is one of your hosts, Sarah. I am doing a couple solo episodes while Mary is on maternity leave, spending time with her new baby. So I'm really, really excited about the topic that I'm flowing through with you guys today because it is a topic that we talk about here and there. The topic's anxiety. I'm sure you saw that in the title. We have talked about our journeys with anxiety here and there, but we haven't done a full-blown episode on overcoming it. And as a lot of you know, I used to struggle with chronic anxiety, meaning that I'd wake up in the morning and in the first 10 seconds of my day, I would instantly feel sensations of anxiety. And I have overcome that fully. And so I'm going to share with you guys the best tips that I use to overcome my anxiety that hopefully you guys will find value in as well. But before we get into that, I want to share a story with you guys that I have been reflecting on all weekend that is extremely profound. I like to reflect back on my journey thus far to where I was before compared to where I am now. And obviously, I am still, I would say, in the beginning stages of this journey of life. I am still young in this human lifetime, in this human body, and I still believe that I have a long way to go on this journey of evolvement and growth. But I have also come a far way. And so I was reflecting on how for a really, really long time, I felt stuck. Even when I started my personal development journey, when I was like reading self-help books and I was listening to podcasts and I started to get into journaling and meditating, for a while I still felt stuck, trapped, like constricted, I felt controlled by things outside of me, like food, sweets, the cupboards, the fridge. I felt controlled by Netflix, just felt like a constant pull of those things. I felt stagnant and unmotivated. And it's hard to explain this, but I almost felt like I was living in this little bubble or this little snow globe of the same old shit every day that I just couldn't break out of. And I didn't know why. And I wasn't necessarily unhappy. Well, on some days I was unhappy, but I just didn't feel free. I didn't feel like I was expanding. I didn't feel like I was blissful and light and evolving into who I felt I was meant to be deep down. So for so long, I felt this way. And what I've been reflecting on this past weekend is that I thought the key to creating freedom, because that's what I really, really desired. I desired freedom. And at the beginning of my personal development journey, a lot of us think that freedom, well, we all have different definitions of freedom, but a lot of people will think of freedom and think of freedom in schedule, freedom in career. But let me tell you, and this is why I started really reflecting on this, at the beginning of my personal development journey, I owned my own business and I still didn't feel free. And obviously, I didn't feel free in a lot of areas of my life. I just didn't feel that deep sense of freedom that I really desired. And back then, I thought the key to creating freedom was to shift my external reality and attempt to control everything that was happening around me in order to create freedom. So I'm just going to give you guys a couple of examples. I would listen to more podcasts and read more self-help books, thinking that my key to unlock unlimited freedom in my life was in those books, was in something that somebody else was going to share with me or tell me. I thought that the key to freedom was to work harder to make more money. I thought that having more money in the bank would create a deeper sense of freedom for me. I thought that a key to freedom was to diet and work out more and attempt to feel more free while prancing around the beach or on the boats in a bikini. For so long, I thought that the way to feel free in a bathing suit was to lose more weight and have a better body. I thought that I needed to figure out how to travel more to feel more free. I thought that I needed to figure out how to move towns or move homes to feel more free. I thought that I needed to get a partner to feel more free from food and Netflix, because I thought that getting a partner would like eliminate those things. I thought that getting a partner would help me binge less and binge Netflix less and food less. I thought that the key to freedom was in shifting my external environment, but no matter how hard I tried, it never worked. Ever. Even when I did, because looking back, there was a point where I was in like I was not having a healthy relationship to food in my body necessarily at the time. And I remember getting a lot of compliments on my body, yet still feeling super insecure in a bathing suit, thinking that people were just saying those things to be nice. And looking back, I'm like, no, they were being genuine. And I did have like a really like very healthy looking body, but I still didn't feel free in the bathing suit. And that's with everything. I acquired more money in the bank and still didn't feel free. I figured out how to travel. I moved, still didn't feel free. So the reason that this never worked is because I was missing the point at the time that our internal realities are creating our external realities. And I know that we say that on this podcast all the time, but I really want this to land for you guys, because even still to this day, I can get caught up in trying to shift the external to change the internal, but I know deep down that that's not true. I was missing this point. And so this is why when I discovered breath work, the deep sense of freedom that I was searching for finally filled my entire body, which then eventually started to reflect out into my external life. Truly, I can remember the switch. I can remember finally starting to get into breathwork, being introduced to meditative breathwork. I can remember breathing through those first sessions and just feeling so free. And then from then on, I felt a deep sense of freedom no matter what is happening outside of my body, no matter what my external reality looks like. Mary and I always talk about the win-then game. It is not, even though the minds like to think it is, it's not when I have lots of money in the bank, when I have a skinny body, then I'll feel free. When I X, Y, and Z, then I'll feel free. That's not it. If we are playing that game and we're surrendering to that and believing that very limiting belief, we are going to stay chasing that sense of freedom for the rest of our lives. We are going to constantly feel a little part of us that's unfulfilled and exhausted from chasing that. What the truth is when I dive internally to shift whatever is there and access plus expand my innate freedom, then I'll feel genuinely free, expansive, abundant, peaceful, and blissful, which in turn will lead me to naturally and easily attracting my dream external reality. If we're playing the win-then game, that's the route that we want to take, because it's true. When we dive internally and shift what's there first, then the external reality will naturally and easily align. And I am living proof of this. So if you desire to live a life feeling a deep sense of freedom, expansion, peace, bliss, and abundance, but no matter what you do, you can't seem to create that for yourself, or if you resonate with feeling stuck, trapped, constricted, controlled by something outside of yourself, small, stagnant, or like you're living in a bubble that you just can't seem to pop, then my new breathwork course, Breathe Free, is for you. And it is now officially open for enrollment, and I am so freaking excited about it. This is an 8-week live coaching and breathwork experience to cultivate and embody freedom through your own breath. So how it'll work is you will enroll. We start July 20th, 2021. So you'll enroll now because there are bonuses to enrolling now, which I'll talk about in a second. You'll enroll on July 20th. We'll have our first session together. And for 8 weeks, we will be having a live 90-minute call. This is a group course, so I'll be leading, and you'll be with 25 other members. We'll get on Zoom, and I'm going to coach you on a specific topic. We are going to flow through a meditative breathwork session, so I'm going to facilitate breathwork for you. And then we are going to do some connection and some Q&A and some shares at the end. So we're going to do this for 8 weeks, and every single one of the 8 weeks has a theme. So when I was reflecting on the story that I just told you, I asked myself, okay, like what else did I do? Because breathwork for sure was the game changer for me when it came to cultivating and embodying freedom, no matter what was happening outside of me. But then I asked myself, what else did I shift internally? Like what topics did I focus on? What areas did I focus on when embodying that freedom, when striving to embody freedom? And I so easily came up with 8 topics that I shifted inside of myself. So these topics have nothing to do with our external worlds, everything to do with what's going on inside of us. I came up with 8 topics that led me to ultimate freedom, and that's what I will be coaching you through, and those topics will be the themes for our breathwork sessions. You are also going to be put in a Facebook community for those 8 weeks with all the other members, and this is where we will be engaging, and you guys can ask questions in there, you guys can connect with each other, you can make friends in that group. As you all know, I have 2 friends, actually no, 3, that started out completely digitally, 2 of them from Facebook groups, and now they're some of my best friends. One of them visited me a couple months ago, and one of them actually just arrived yesterday into my town. So you can make friends there, and that's just going to be a place for connection and updates and announcements. You get so much more included in this course, and I'm not going to go through it because I really want to get into today's topic, but you can find all the details at sarahjeanharkin.com/breathe-free. Breathe-free. I'm going to link that because I just fucked it up. sarahjeanharkin.com/breathe-free. All the information, all the details are there. And we're still in the early bird launch until July 14th, 2021. So if you enroll now, you're going to get an extra $50 off the already discounted price. I did discount it this time around because this is the first launch of it. And I always discount my first launches just as a let's celebrate. So you're going to get $50 off the already $100 off price, plus you're going to get 2 months free in my brand new membership, Inward and Upward, which is a membership that is full of breathwork sessions, meditation sessions, embodiment practices that are all 12 minutes or less. So that membership is more so for the maintenance of the work that you'll be doing with me in the course. So if you enroll by July 14th, which is, if you're listening to this on the day it drops, 1 week from today, you're going to get that extra $50 off the already sale price, plus 2 free months in my membership, Inward and Upward. So head to sarahjeanharkin.com/breathe-free. Enroll now, grab your spot. There are only 25 spots available and it is already filling. So be sure to do that as soon as possible. And I'm so excited to have you in that container. I'm so freaking excited for you to finally dive into your breathwork journey. Mary and I have been talking about breathwork for so freaking long. And now here is finally an opportunity for you to explore it for yourself and let it show you how you are your own healer and how you are the most powerful being when it comes to changing your own life. You are truly all that you need. So go enroll and I will see you in that container. All right, let's move on to today's topic, which is 5 ways to overcome anxiety and create a peaceful, easeful life. So like I previously mentioned, I used to struggle with chronic anxiety. And I actually experienced anxiety a lot in college, but I didn't know. I literally didn't even know what the term anxiety was. So I didn't really claim it to be anxiety. And then once I left college and went to nutrition school and started my own business and started to dive into this work a little bit more, I realized that what I was struggling with was anxiety. And it got worse when I first started my business. And like I said, I would wake up every morning just feeling this deep anxiousness, which really sucked, because if you've ever experienced the sensation of anxiety, it's not fun to live with. It feels constricting. It feels very suffocating. It feels just the opposite of enlightening and expansive and free. It feels worrisome. And for me personally, I'm just going to talk to my journey. And I know that we all, flow through anxiety in different ways. But I personally would numb the anxiety with Netflix and food. And that really made me feel super unmotivated to do anything else in my life. So anxiety really got in the way. It held me back from my business and my career and serving and helping the world. And it also, at the time, I did not have a partner. So it kept me unmotivated from dating. I had no interest in being on dating apps or dating or going out or seeing people. Honestly, friendships as well. It kept me really secluded there because all I wanted to do was stay in the comfort of my own home, because if you struggle with anxiety, sometimes social anxiety can play into that, and it did for me. So I really just wanted to hide. Like, I just wanted to stay in my bedroom and watch Netflix and eat food, because that's where I felt the most safe and the most comfortable. And that is no way to live life. So my journey to overcoming anxiety was a journey of growth and really fully developing into my highest self, which was cool. So looking back at it, the sensations of anxiety happened for me, because if I never experienced the anxiety, I would have never went through the journey that I did to overcome it, which led me into so much more than the mind could have even imagined. It led me into so much expansion and freedom and bliss and peace and goodness in my life. So I do have an appreciation for it, but I want to share with you guys the 5 main things that I did to overcome the anxiety I experienced. So if you don't already have a notepad, I highly suggest it, especially if you're somebody who struggles with anxiety. Get it out and take notes on the things that feel aligning. Maybe some of these tips because I just want to be clear, like, I am not a doctor. I only have my experience to speak to. I am very passionate about the holistic health route and doing things naturally and being my own healer. That's not for everybody, and that's okay. But if that's intriguing to you too, then I'm inviting you to listen to my story, listen to the ways that I overcame these things. And if it feels aligning, maybe try it out yourself. So the first thing that I did, and the first thing that I learned that was like my biggest aha moment, was to stop identifying with the anxiety I was experiencing. So I was very stuck in a state of, I am anxious. I wake up anxious. I have anxiety. And when we identify with anxiety, we stay stuck in it, because we'll say the thought or think the thought, oh, I'm so anxious. I would wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm so anxious already. I have so much anxiety. When I'm saying I am anxious, I have anxiety, the mind in me would go, oh. And at the time, I was not conscious that this was happening, but it was. The mind would go, oh, you have anxiety? Okay, let's look for more reasons to give you anxiety. Let's look for more reasons to make you anxious. Because remember, you guys, the mind is a state of survival. The mind only cares about being right. The mind does not care about thriving. The mind does not care about peace. It just cares about being right and survival and safety. And anxiety and experiencing it was certain to me. So the mind was latching on to this identity because the mind didn't know who I was without the anxiety. So I would stay identified with it. And when we identify with it, we can't get away from it. So what I did was I started to instead observe my experience when I was in those states of anxiety. What I would do is I just started to identify what the thoughts sounded like when I was in a state of anxiety. So when I was in a state of anxiety, it was usually thoughts about worrying about the future. Like, what if I fail? What if I never succeed? What if this goes downhill? What if I have to go work for somebody else again? What if nobody accepts me? What if I lose all my friends? What if I can never find a partner to support the work that I do? What if nobody gets it? What if I get hate on social media? So I started calling those thoughts out. One thing that I want you guys to fully take away from this episode, and what I want to fully land in your body, is just because you have a thought does not mean it's true. We are not our thoughts. You are not your thoughts. I was not my thoughts. I am not my thoughts still. Now, there are thoughts that can be created from our highest selves that are in alignment with where we desire to go in life, which is great because our thoughts contribute to creating our reality, but we are not our thoughts. And so the first thing that I did to overcome the anxiety was to just start observing my thoughts when I was in that anxious state. It's almost like I would take my soul out of my body and watch my human experience from an out-of-body place. Sometimes I would even, and still to this day, because yes, I overcame the chronic anxiety and I don't wake up with it anymore. Well, I don't wake up with it anymore every day, but there are still moments where I experience sensations of anxiety. I'm a human. Of course it's going to happen. Like, I'm not just bliss and peace all the time. And so in those moments that it comes up, I just have tools to shift it and work through it and move with it now. So to this day, I'll still like sit on my floor and just hold my body and just kind of like watch what's happening. Watch the thinker, watch the mind. I'll start to speak the thoughts out loud that are happening to remind myself that, oh, just because these thoughts are happening doesn't mean that they are true. They're not ultimate truths at all. None of us, like, we can have these thoughts, but like they're not an ultimate truth, because the thoughts such as, what if I fail? I mean, that's something in the future. Like, I haven't failed yet. And so that's not a truth. You know what I'm saying? Is this making sense? So I would call out the thoughts and I would just kind of like watch what was happening in my body. Being able to identify where you're feeling the sensations of anxiety can be super powerful for overcoming it. So I would feel the anxiety in the chest. So I'd kind of just watch that. I would watch the anxiety in the chest. Sometimes I would give it a color. I would see it. I would feel it. I would like hold my chest and just kind of breathe into it a little bit. And it would feel like constricting for me in the chest. Sometimes my heart would beat really fast. So I just started to observe the experience. Now, what happens when we observe rather than identify is we create all of this space to shift the way we're feeling. When we're identified with the anxiety, there's no changing it. We are going to stay stuck in that spiral, in that anxiety tornado. But when we stop and pause and pull ourselves out of the experience and just watch the thoughts and watch the body, it gives us so much space to change the way that we're feeling. And speaking the thoughts out loud, a lot of the times tends to dissipate the thoughts that are creating the anxiety in the first place. So number one is observe over identify. Observe over identify. And just switch the wording. Instead of I am anxious, that's an identification statement. You can switch it to an observation statement of I am experiencing sensations of anxiety. Because you as a being, you didn't come into this world, well, most likely you didn't come into this world super anxious or super stressed out. You were just a soul in a little baby body figuring out what the heck this earth thing is. So the statement, I am anxious, if I asked you, is your evolved self anxious, you'd say no. And so that's a false statement. But I am experiencing sensations of anxiety, that's an observation statement. Even that shift in wording can create so much of an impact and change in your life. So that's the first thing that I did. Moving on to the second thing that I learned and embodied, and it worked. And this kind of goes along, all of this really, every single one of these steps goes along with feeling to heal. We say it all the time, we got to feel in order to heal. A lot of you ask how to do that. Well, here's how. Not feeling to heal basically just looks like numbing, suppressing, or avoiding. So experiencing anxiety and doing something about it right away. Like even just like meditating right away or doing breath work or something healthy right away is spiritually bypassing. That's not feeling to heal. if you turn to food or Netflix or wine or working out or whatever it is right away when you experience anxiety, that's not feeling to heal. Feeling to heal is these 5 steps that I'm sharing with you right now. And note too that this is not in any specific order. You can take what you want from this and practice it whenever. Okay, so number 2 is I would ask myself these questions. First, am I safe? It is so important that we ask ourselves when we're experiencing sensations of anxiety, am I safe? Because a lot of the times the minds like to equate anxiety to death or to pain or suffering. And even though sensations of anxiety might feel painful and might feel like we're suffering, at the end of the day, we're not going to die from experiencing sensations of anxiety. So that simple question, am I safe, can really do a lot and can click on a light bulb in the mind like, oh, yeah, we're safe. Okay. We're safe. We're safe. We're safe to feel through this. We're safe to explore this. So, am I safe? Question number 2 is this mine? If you are an empath, that's just somebody who basically like takes on emotions from others. So, maybe you can walk into a room, maybe you can feel like really good, you're having a good day, and then you walk into a room and instantly you feel your body kind of like slump or constrict. Or maybe you walk into a room and you instantly feel sensations of anxiety. I know that has happened with me. It still sometimes does. I'm a little bit more intentional and better about protecting my energy now. But you got to ask yourself, is this mine? Because sometimes the anxiety you're experiencing isn't yours, but it's your partner's, or it's your friends, or it's your parents, or if it's your grandparents or your siblings or your coworkers or your bosses. Like that's a huge one. Sometimes maybe you're in a work situation and something goes wrong and you are pretty good at like just being like, okay, like it is what it is. It went wrong. We're going to figure it out. But then all of a sudden your boss or coworker comes in and just like freaks out like, oh my gosh, this sucks. What if this happens? What if it leads to this? And then all of a sudden you're kind of like giving into that and feeling these sensations of anxiety. The anxiety might not even be yours to begin with. So asking yourself the question, is this mine? Sometimes, most of the time, I would say the answer will probably be yes. But sometimes the answer is, oh no, this anxiety isn't mine. It's my coworkers. And just identifying that can lighten the sensations in themselves. So am I safe? Is this mine? And then you get to go a little deeper. Now, you get to go deeper on this next question than what I'm going to talk about here. But I am going to mention it. I do go deeper into this in my course, Diet Culture Dropout. So if you're in that, then you have this info. And if you're not, then you can check out that course that's on my website as well. But the question is this true pain or is this created suffering? Underneath true pain, underneath true anxiety, there's always a lesson. Sensations of anxiety, a lot of the times, if it's true, all the time, if the anxiety is true, it's our souls communicating to us. Our souls like to communicate to us through feelings and through sensations. If it's true pain, there's a lesson or message underneath. Now, a lot of the times, anxiety has created suffering. And what I mean by that is we are choosing to believe in a limiting belief that's creating the anxiety. So maybe the limiting belief is, I am not enough. And that limiting belief is ingrained in our systems. And so when we only get 5 out of 10 things done on our to-do list and it's 5 p.m., all of a sudden the sensations of anxiety come on strong and we're giving into them, but we're choosing to feel that anxiety because we're creating the suffering based on the belief that I am not enough. So basically what's happening there is like you get 5 out of 10 things done on your to-do list. You're starting to feel sensations of anxiety because you are carrying around this belief that I am not enough, and looking at only 5 things crossed off out of 10 is creating evidence as to why you're not enough, which is creating that suffering. So anxiety is always either true pain and there's a lesson underneath. And if it's true pain, if you figure out like, okay, no, this anxiety is not, because when you're figuring out if it's created suffering, another question you can ask yourself is, could this anxiety be attached to a limiting belief that I have? So could the anxiety I'm feeling right now be attached to I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not lovable, or I'm not capable, or I'm not as good as that other person, or whatever it is. And if you find that limiting belief, then great. You know that you're creating the suffering, and now you get to work on that deeper limiting belief level. But if it's not attached to a limiting belief and it's true pain, then you get to ask yourself, what is this teaching me? So an example of that would be one time I was feeling a lot of sensations of anxiety from just feeling overwhelmed and putting too much on my plate. Now, this is very individualistic, and I had to ask myself in that moment, like, obviously I asked myself, is this attached to a limiting belief? And in that moment, I was like, no, because I know that I've worked on my worthiness and enoughness wounds enough to know that those wouldn't be creating this. At the time, I had a lot to get done, but even if I didn't get all these things done, I would still feel worthy. I would still feel enough. It's not attached to limiting beliefs. So I asked myself, okay, this is true pain, then what's the lesson underneath? And the lesson underneath was I need to put more time and energy into myself. I was acting and living from a depleted cup instead of a full one. That week specifically, I wasn't allowing myself a lot of time for me. And so what it was teaching me and what my soul was communicating to me was that I need more me time. So that's the second thing that I did, and I still do, is I ask myself those questions. Am I safe? Is this fine? Is this true pain? If so, what's the lesson? Or is this created suffering? And that is feeling to heal. And I know it took me a while to explain that. And like I said, I kind of touched the surface on those last two, but it really doesn't take that long to do. It's just simple. I mean, you can journal it out, for sure you can. And I did at first, but now it's just a matter of me thinking all that through in my head, and that eases my sensations of anxiety. All right, moving on. Y'all knew this was coming. Breathwork. Breathwork was the biggest flip in the switch to overcoming the chronic anxiety that I used to experience. When I got into the meditative breathwork sessions, that is when I started to notice that I would wake up with less and less and less sensations of anxiety, and then it just stopped happening. And even to this day, like I said, sensations of anxiety will appear, but I use breath work to help me move through it and shift it. Now, obviously, I don't go right into that. If I'm experiencing sensations of anxiety, I always allow myself time to feel it first. I always allow myself time to observe it, to ask myself the questions, to take steps 4 and 5, which I'm going to explain in a second, or tips 4 and 5, I should say. But then after I explore it, after I feel it, I turn to breath work to shift it. So the meditative breath work, which is included in my course, Breathe Free, that's really what helped me overcome the chronic anxiety. And then I use integrative breath work, so the shorter sessions, which is in my new membership, Inward and Upward, to shift the anxiety I experience throughout my everyday. So if I am experiencing sensations of anxiety one afternoon, but I'm in the middle of a work day, I will take 5 minutes to explore it, to feel it, and then to do a little integrative breathwork session to shift it so I can get back to work from an evolved, expanded place. Another thing to go along with the breathwork is just deep breaths in general. Deep belly breaths is something that all of us can do more of, and it's not easy to do, and it's really easy to forget to do, but deep breaths have helped me so much. Just breathing in and out of my belly, in through the nose, out through the mouth, sometimes allow an audible sigh. That can really help me to ease my body when I am experiencing sensations of anxiety. But all in all, the meditative breathwork sessions really help me overcome this, because with anxiety, what happens is we tend to suppress it by numbing it. So a lot of us were not taught how to process anxiety and how to feel it and work through it and move through it. From a young age, we were just taught to numb, avoid, and suppress it. And anything we numb, avoid, and suppress gets trapped in our bodies and comes back stronger and stronger each time, which is why, for me, all throughout college and then afterward, the anxiety got worse and worse and worse. Like, it started my freshman year, it got worse sophomore, junior, senior, it got even worse when I graduated, it got even worse when I started my business, because I was just suppressing it, numbing it, and avoiding it through food, through Netflix, for a while, through over-exercising, through over-studying. Like, there was just so many ways that through drinking in college, there were so many ways that I numb it and stuff it in. And when I did that, it would just build up and build up and build up and build up, which is why I ended up experiencing chronic anxiety and waking up with it every day, because it gets stronger and stronger. And this is also why breath work has been so powerful for me in overcoming it and healing my chronic anxiety, because breath work allowed me to dig into the sensations of anxiety that I've experienced the past 7 years, access it and release it and let it go and let it go and pull it up and let it go and pull it up and let it go and pull it up and let it go. It's almost like digging up a bunch of dirt. I would dig up the dirt of the anxious sensations so that they'd be less and less. And that's why I don't wake up with the chronic anxiety anymore. So breath work has been probably the most powerful for me when it comes to overcoming anxiety. And I know that a lot of people who are already practicing breath work would agree. All right, tip number 4 is asking yourself the question. A lot of this, you guys, is like in the moment anxiety, exploring it is just like building a relationship, allowing your highest self to build a relationship with the mind in you and asking the mind questions, because the mind freaks out about the future majority of the time for no reason at all. Sure, there are definitely times and places for the minds to worry about the future. But the majority of the time when the mind's worrying about the future, it is absolutely pointless. And the sensations of anxiety the mind creates is for no reason at all. A lot of the times I'll watch people, and I used to do this too, get super worried and upset about some future scenario that they're guessing is going to happen in their mind, and that doesn't even happen. So they just put themselves in this awful state of anxiety for no reason at all. So a lot of this work is just really starting to build that relationship with the mind, explore what's happening there, explore its fears, and ask it these questions that dumbfound it. When you can dumbfound the mind, the thoughts of anxiety tend to turn off and the anxiousness dissipates. So tip number 4 is asking yourself the question, is worrying and trying to control everything going to change anything at all? Like, just ask yourself the question, is worrying and trying to control the future, is that going to change anything? Is it going to help? I'm going to give you guys a very recent example of this. So Zach and I have been flipping a house. Zach is my boyfriend, if you are new to the show. And we've been flipping a house for the past 7 months, and it's finally done. And so we threw a party to celebrate it being finished. And we invited like 45 family and friends, 45 people who a lot of people were like included in the house process, helping us and visiting and all of that. And so we just wanted to throw a celebration for everybody who showed up and who was there for us throughout the past 7 months when it came to flipping the house. And I decided to do all of the food and all of the decor and all of the everything myself. And this was the first party that I ever hosted, as in like I prepared like an entire meal and did it all. This is the first one that I did for that many people. And so I prepared the week leading up to the party, which if you follow me on Instagram, you saw me grocery shopping and all the things. And so the day comes and I actually did my family friends a favor. They went out of town for the night and they have a daughter who I used to nanny when she was younger. She's 5 now. And they asked me if I could take her for the night because they're going out of town and they didn't have anybody, and I love her to death. So I'm like, yeah, I'll take her while I'm hosting this party for 45 people. So I took her and I just kind of like set her up in the kitchen with me. And if you're a parent, then you know how it goes trying to get things like this done when you have a child who always wants to be occupied. And so I'm like sitting there and I like sit her up on the counter and she's like coloring or something. And I start to cut the veggies up because I'm preparing this meal that people are going to eat in 3 hours. And all of a sudden, a wave of sensations of anxiety just hit me. And the mind in me is like, shit, no, like I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like this for the party. I don't want to be in this state of anxiety while I'm getting ready. And of course, I just decided that I needed to stop and go through all of these tips that I'm sharing with you guys right now. And the biggest thing that helped me that day was asking myself, is worrying about Because first I observed the thoughts. I'm like, okay, what thoughts are happening? The thoughts were, what if I don't get all the food done? What if people show up and the food's not ready yet? What if I don't cut up enough food? What if I have to be in and out of the garage the entire party and I don't have time to enjoy it? What if the food isn't warm? What if there are all these what ifs from the negative end of the spectrum? So I asked myself, is worrying about any of that or trying to control any of that, is that going to change anything? Like, is worrying about if the food's going to be cut up or not by the time people get there, is that going to change anything? No, it was not. Like, is worrying about if the food's going to be warm or not, is that going to change anything? No. Like, the food's either going to be done or not when people get there, and the food's either going to be warm or not. Sitting there worrying about if it's going to get done on time and if everybody's going to be happy, that's not going to change a damn thing in the present moment. So I literally just had to ask myself that. And I'm like, no, it's not going to change anything. The only thing that I can do is in the present moment. The only thing that I can do to make this party a success is to drop into my body, be present as I cut up these vegetables and occupy this baby girl that I was watching. The best thing I can do is just be present, breathe. So deep belly breaths, that came in here too, because I just really was intentional about breathing in and out of my belly that entire time I was getting ready for the party. The best thing that I could do for myself, and I did, was be present, do one thing at a time, cut the tomatoes, then cut the limes, then put things into bowls. The only thing I could do was when people started to show up and ask me if I needed help, say yes, like, Zach's mom, my mom. And so I did. And it was a lot more of an enjoyable experience, and everything went wonderfully. Now, if I would have allowed myself to just hang out in the anxious, worried state, I'm sure it would have all still gotten done, but I would have just felt a lot shittier while doing it, and I wouldn't have been able to enjoy my time. And probably everybody would have thought that I was a spaz, because when I used to experience sensations of anxiety and talk and act and speak from that place, it was like the Tasmanian devil. Oh my gosh. I don't know where that came from. Do you guys know who the Tasmanian devil is? If you don't, I'm old. But it's like this little, I think it's a Cartoon Network character. It's like this, I want to say it's like a mole or something with like a little tornado on the bottom of it, and it just like speeds around everywhere. Somebody let me know if I'm right about that. But that's what came to mind. I'm literally the Tasmanian devil when I'm living from a place of the anxiety, and that's not fun for anybody. So, simple question, you guys, asking yourself, is worrying going to change anything? Is it? Like, let's say, another thing that happened that day is a bunch of rain, like downpouring. We had already spent so much money on the party, on the food, and on the tent, and it was downpouring. And honestly, the weather thing I've come to accept like a while ago, and I realized that's out of my control. But I asked myself, like, is worrying about if it's going to rain or not in 3 hours when the party starts, is worrying about that going to change anything? No. The weather's going to do what the weather's going to do. So the only thing that I could do in that moment was surrender and laugh and be like, you know what? It is what it is. It's going to rain or it's going to not. And it's going to be great either way. And everybody's going to show up, or people are going to be scared away by the rain. And that's totally out of my control. So we're just going to throw our hands up and we're going to put on the best party like we were planning on doing. And if people don't show up, it is what it is. It's out of my control. Why would I worry about it? So simple question, is worrying going to change anything? Is trying to overly control everything going to change anything? The answer is typically no. And it puts the mind at ease. All right. And lastly, tip number 5. This is one of my favorites. This is so powerful, you guys. It's called future casting. Future casting. Write it down, big letters, underline it. When you're in a state of anxiety, it's because you're living in the future, predicting the worst possible outcome. So shift that. Future cast and see it all going smoothly. Because you don't know, you guys, the future does not exist yet. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. The future is so unpredictable, so unknown. The minds love to think that they can predict the future. They absolutely cannot. Everything is uncertain. Anything could happen at any second that the mind does not expect. So you have a choice. You can either sit there and predict the worst to happen and just think about the worst happening, which creates anxiety, or you can see everything going smoothly. So a couple more examples of this and how I've used this and how it works so wonderfully. When I first became a yoga instructor and I very first started teaching yoga, I would experience anxiety for like 3 hours leading up to teaching the class. And it happened the first time, and it was not fun teaching the class because I was in a state of anxiety. And then I decided, wait a second, I have the power to create my reality and my future through my thoughts. So why not spend, like right when I started to experience sensations of anxiety, I would start to see my yoga classes going smoothly. And I just do this throughout my day. I'd be doing my day, but I would be intentional about watching myself walk into the class gracefully, watching myself greet the students and lead them through this blissful yoga flow. I would watch them flowing and loving the class. I would imagine them saying to me, "That was an awesome class, Sarah. Thank you so much. I needed that." I would just start to future cast seeing it all go smoothly, which would calm my body and manifest beautiful, wonderful things. With the party, I once I started to flow through all of this and work through the anxiety, I would just see it. I watched it going smoothly. I visualized as I was cutting the vegetables, I visualized what the food table would look like when everybody arrived. And it did. I love using this tip, the future casting, on airplanes. Whenever I am on a plane, right before we take off, I close my eyes and I visualize a very smooth, beautiful takeoff. And then when they announce we'll be landing soon, I visualize a smooth decline and a very smooth landing. Because I tend to experience some sensations of anxiety on the planes, but when I'm future casting and when I'm watching us before it actually happens take off smoothly and land smoothly, the sensations of anxiety totally disappear. So future casting is super powerful because, once again, anxiety is living in the future, guessing the worst case scenario. So why not? It takes just the same amount of effort and thought to future cast a positive, beautiful scenario. So future casting is super powerful for overcoming anxiety. I'm just going to give you guys a rundown of all of the steps that I took one more time to overcome anxiety. So first, I stopped identifying with anxiety and I started observing. I switched my language from I have anxiety to I'm experiencing sensations of anxiety. Second, I started asking myself the questions, am I safe? Is this mine? Is this true pain? If so, what's it teaching me? What's the lesson here? Or is this created suffering? And if this is created suffering, I would draw it back to a limiting belief and start to work on the level of shifting my beliefs. Number 3, breath work. Meditative sessions once a week is what I did at the time I was overcoming chronic anxiety. And then from then on out, still to this day, I do integrative sessions at least 3 to 4 times a week. But at first, when I was overcoming the chronic, I was just doing a meditative session once a week. Fourth, I asked myself, is worrying going to change anything at all? Is worrying about the outcome going to change anything? Is trying to overly control going to change anything? And fifth, I would future cast and see it all going smoothly. So take what landed for you. And if you are somebody who's trying really hard to overcome this anxiety in a more natural and holistic way, join my course, Breathe Free. This is your perfect opportunity to dive into meditative breathwork, to practice it once a week because that's how often we're going to meet. We're meeting every single Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's for US and Canada. You can convert that to your time zone, and that's the time we'll be meeting every Tuesday for 8 weeks. We start July 20th. So if you're listening to this on drop date, that's about 2 weeks from today. If you are listening to the recording, be sure to head to sarahjaneharkin.com because I will most likely turn this into a digital course once we are done because I am recording all the sessions. Every single one of you who joins now, you're going to get this in course form. You will get the recordings and the replays. So if you can't make it live, that is totally fine. You will get the replays of all of the sessions. So if you can't make Tuesdays at 6 p.m. EST, then you can set a time aside for the next 8 weeks. Maybe it's on Wednesdays or Thursdays or Sundays to flow through the course and to keep up with us and engage in the Facebook group anyway. So go check it out, sarahjeanharkin.com/breathe-free. I'm linking that here in the show notes. And I hope you guys love this episode. I enjoyed bringing it to you. Overcoming anxiety has completely changed every single aspect in my life. And if you struggle with anxiety, which I'm sure you do, if you're here, you know how that is possible. So I hope you all have beautiful, magical days, peaceful, relaxing nights. If you are interested in Breathe Free, be sure to enroll within the next 6 days so that you do receive the extra discount and 2 free months in my new membership, Inward and Upward. All right, guys, I will talk to you all next week, and I will